It is now time for question period. I recognize the Leader of His Majesty's Loyal Opposition.
So, Speaker, we're wrapping up another week here in the legislature, and here's where we are at with this government. A House Leader under RCMP criminal investigation, government decisions under OPP anti-racketeering investigation, and a Premier who is holding the line for all of the ministers involved. And after weeks and weeks of embarrassing headlines, we are still no closer to getting answers from this government about how they decided which organizations would receive skills development grants. So I'd like to ask the Premier to tell us how it is possible that so many applicants with insider connections got funding from this government.
Minister of Labour.
Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, as I've said on numerous occasions, Speaker, when we make these decisions, we assess broad government priorities. And I want to reference one in particular. Speaker, yesterday, the government announced Pickering Nuclear Generation refurbishment, Speaker. This is a refurbishment that will alone create over 37,000 jobs and contribute $41.6 billion to our economy. So when we make decisions to support training for many of the men and women in Ontario's building trades, Speaker, it's with nation building in mind, Speaker. It's with the $200 billion commitment to infrastructure in mind, Speaker. And when you look to refurbishment projects like the one announced yesterday, incredible Minister of Energy, our Finance Minister were there, Speaker, supported by a number of men and women from Ontario building trades, Speaker. They recognize that this project will put their men to work. And they know that had it been up to the members opposite, they would have given them pink slips, Speaker. That's why we're training, nation building, building a...
Back to the Leader of the Opposition.
Well, you know what, Speaker? It's really unfortunate that the Premier scheduled a press conference at exactly this time, so he didn't have to be here to answer these questions.
We're not going to go down that road today. I will warn people today, and people will be removed from the chamber if they don't follow the rules. Please continue.
The government may be sick of hearing these questions, and let me tell you, I am really sick of asking them. And that is why I submitted a complaint to the Integrity Commissioner this week. Ontarians deserve answers, and I am not going to stop fighting to get them. So will the Premier come clean about his involvement, full transparency, full disclosure about all of the political interventions and communications related to the SDF grants?
Minister of Labour.
Speaker, I welcome any opportunity to stand up and speak about the work this government's doing to invest in training, training for our next generation, Speaker. As I mentioned, this government is committed to nation building. We're laying down partisan stripes, working with the federal government, working with provinces from around Canada to nation build. And I just highlighted a specific project that we announced just yesterday, Speaker. Had it been up to the members opposite, they would have handed those workers in Pickering pink slips. Pink slips.
Order.
They would have sent them home, Speaker. This government is investing in a refurbishment that will create over 37,000 jobs, Speaker, with 90%. This is what's so exciting about our nuclear sector. 90% of project spending will occur right here in Canada, in Ontario, Speaker. This is incredible. Supporting our local businesses. And those businesses know that when it comes to linking with training, they've got a government that's going to support them for better.
Back to the Leader of the Opposition.
Laying down partisan stripes, Speaker? I mean, it's like you can't get a grant from this government unless you donate to that minister's riding, for goodness sake. Are you kidding me? Speaker, it is undeniable. Ontarians have had enough of this minister's endless excuses. They want him gone. So back to the Premier. Will you listen to Ontarians and fire this minister?
Minister of Labour.
Speaker, as I've said, we have put those stripes down. We've invested in projects whose executives have donated tens of thousands to the members opposite, Speaker. But that doesn't matter, as I've said, Speaker. Investing in projects led by former candidates of the parties opposite, Speaker, but that doesn't matter. What matters is the merits of the training they are delivering and the work they are doing to train Ontarians, Speaker. Again, I reference this leader campaigned on giving pink slips to the men and women of Pickering's nuclear sector, Speaker. She can't name one training centre, not one training centre that she's actually visited. And I know because many of these union leaders have reached out to me saying they've invited her and she's refused to come, Speaker. It's really disappointing, but it's not surprising because they have abandoned that party opposite. They used to be the party of Labour. Now it's Premier Ford and the Ontario PCs because we're putting their members to work.
Question the Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, let's talk disappointing, shall we? It is really shocking how deep this scandal goes and how close the connections run to this government. In round 5 of the Skills Development Fund, an Alberta company called Technology North received $900,000 from the Ontario government. What? Was the Minister of Labour aware that his wife was a lobbyist for Technology North?
Minister of Labour.
Speaker, again, it's shameful that they're bringing family members in who, a hardworking woman like my wife, who works closely and follows rules of the Integrity Commissioner, Speaker. Again, Speaker, we're proud to invest in nation-building projects that are going to put men and women of this province to work because we've got a plan. And we've got a plan to build highways, a plan to build roads, Speaker, a plan to build public transit after years of neglect, Speaker, a plan that's going to make Ontario an energy superpower, Speaker.
Hamilton West, Ancaster Dundas will come to order.
18,000 jobs there, to nuclear refurbishment in Pickering, Speaker, to potential new nuclear in communities like mine. People see the immense opportunity this offers. We've got an energy minister that is enabling Ontario to stand on our own 2 feet, to be energy sufficient. We're going to make sure we have a talent pipeline to meet the needs of tomorrow and the days to come, Speaker, and we're not going to apologize.
Back to the Leader of the Opposition.
Well, Minister, I think said he cleared it somehow. I don't know, but we're going to need proof of that. We're going to need proof of that. Because the minister's wife, Faith Chipman, is a lobbyist for Technology North. She's also a registered lobbyist here in Ontario. The minister can say there's nothing to see here, but there is a pattern. I mean, just look at who has benefited from this fund that he controls. We've got the Premier's campaign manager. We've got the minister's close and personal friend, the Paris Group. Now, we've got the minister's wife. So did the minister give a $900,000 grant to Technology North because his wife is a lobbyist for that company?
Wow. Minister of Labour.
Speaker, no. Speaker, as I've said, this government is committed to supporting meaningful training pathways in every corner of our economy, Speaker. This morning we were out and I met with a number of our labour unions this morning, Speaker, members of the OPFFA yesterday who were disappointed, Speaker, that member opposite would oppose the very training that's helping their men and women in uniform, Speaker, delivering better training on the ground, Speaker.
And that's what Waterloo will come to order.
Nation build, to build projects that are going to define a province, define a nation, and put the men and women who are going to get the job done to work with better training, Speaker, breaking down barriers for meaningful pathways to apprenticeships, and statistically it's working. Again, the Leader of the Opposition can't name one union that she's visited, one training hall, the men and women in our provincial building trades who are getting the job done, Speaker.
Final supplementary, the Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, this minister is going to do absolutely anything, it's clear, to avoid answering questions about his grift. Yep. Right? It is not about the fund. It is about the grift. It is about the direct line between this minister, right, between the people who are making decisions and the people who are benefiting. It is never, ever about the people of Ontario. It is never about the workers. It is always about this minister and this government and their insiders and their friends. The laundry list of lobbyists who have made millions of dollars from their connections to this fund and this government continues to grow. Meanwhile, we found out yesterday that manufacturing jobs in this province are down to 1976 levels. So how many unemployed workers are not being trained right now because of this minister using that fund as a slush fund for his friends and family?
Minister of Labour.
Speaker, it's completely inaccurate, Speaker, and we're going to continue to stay focused on supporting training pathways. We've got a fund that's improved after every round, that's linking to our employment management system, Speaker, that requires a financial audit, Speaker, that requires monthly reporting, Speaker, that every dollar goes to training. And why are we doing that, Speaker? Because one need look no further than the recent pandemic to the tariff threats that we see from President Trump, Speaker. We're investing in projects that are helping men and women of any age better train to deal with the disruptions that we're seeing in our economy. And we're proud
Leader
to have
of the Opposition will come to order.
And we're proud to have a program, Speaker, that's making those investments. And we've seen an increase in registration in apprenticeship, Speaker. Support for AI-driven training, Speaker. Support for training that's delivering a better generation of PSWs and healthcare workers. And we're going to continue to stay focused on that.
Question. I recognize the Leader of the Third Party.
Very much, Speaker. And my questions to the Premier. Ontario has manufacturing jobs as a share of the economy is the lowest it's been since 1976. And it's not because the economy is growing. We've had 9 straight quarters of decline. No, it's because the Premier continues to shovel millions and millions of dollars out the door, no strings attached, to friends and insiders in the rot that is the Skills Development Fund. There is no real plan for jobs in Ontario, and everybody can see it. Our unemployment is at a record high, and the Premier thinks the solution is to shovel $10 million out the door to the owners of a strip club. So, Speaker, when is the Premier going to get serious about manufacturing jobs here in Ontario?
Recognize the Minister of Finance.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, through you to the member opposite for that very important question. Let's go back in time a little bit. When the government that he was part of said to manufacturers, we don't want you in this province anymore. We want a service economy and abandoned our manufacturing sector. 300,000 manufacturing jobs later, Premier Doug Ford and this government comes in, and today, from the low point of Kathleen Wynne and the previous government,
third party will come to order.
750,000 jobs, we've grown it to 830,000 manufacturing jobs. Because we have the backs of the manufacturing workers in this province, be it in steel, be it in auto, be it in lumber, right across this province. We're supporting manufacturing, we're supporting workers, and in fact, we've done for them. We've done a manufacturing tax cut, so to incent more capital to support the businesses that hire the workers.
Supplementary, the Leader of the Third Party.
It's interesting for the minister to say that, because they've gained about 20,000 jobs in 7 years, which is way slower than the population grows. But I'll let him explain that in his response. So it's actually not about jobs with the Premier. It's all about the big show. And they're in such a hurry to do things. And I think they're in double digits for housing bills now, each one undoing the one that was there before. And our housing starts are the lowest in the country by a country mile. And that gap is growing. And they're in such a hurry, they gave tens of millions of dollars to a company that they put under a forensic audit. And they continued to give it to them. And so they were in such a hurry to start Ontario Health at Home that dying people couldn't get the supplies they needed to die in dignity at home. So we need a serious government and a serious Premier that's serious about jobs. When's the Premier going to do that?
Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, you know what an unserious government does? What they said, they would shut down the Pickering nuclear station. That's what an unserious government, the previous Liberal government, said. Yesterday, I was very proud to be in my riding of Pickering-Uxbridge, along with the great Minister of Energy and Mines, to announce the refurbishment of the Pickering nuclear stations, which will power 2.2 million homes. Clean energy, good jobs. And you know how many jobs that'll be? 30,000 new construction jobs supporting our manufacturing sector. Their government there wouldn't be one job.
Don Valley North will come to
because
order.
of their policies. Madam Speaker, we're stepping up for building the vision and the future of this province, but we're doing it today.
Final supplementary.
Here, with this government, mistakes are going up, jobs are going down. And if you want a visual representation, a real visual representation, just take a look at the signs that the Premier sent to replace the speed cameras. They're huge. I mean, they're huge to the point of absurdity. You can't miss them. I mean, you could fit 3 of me inside them, and that's a big sign. So, Speaker, signs, having a big sign, it just doesn't compensate for having no plan. And if this Premier were serious, and we had a serious government, we wouldn't have to talk about strip clubs, forensic audits, oversized signs, license plates that don't work. Do you want me to go on? So I guess the real question here is, when is the Premier going to get serious about his job and about the jobs of Ontarians?
I recognize the Minister of Energy and Mines.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. The member opposite is searching for a jobs plan, and there's one right before them. The authorization of a nuclear refurbishment that will create 37,000 net new jobs starting 2026 for the people of Ontario, a nuclear asset which the Liberal Party campaigned on closing, turning their backs on 2,000 workers. Madam Speaker, if the members opposite seek a plan to get people working, they will commit today to Ontario's nuclear advantage, a program that will use 90% of our program spend that stays in this province, supporting the supply chain, supporting workers, supporting families. We want members opposite to support our plan to expand energy, to build net new nuclear, to fire up the supply chain, and to get 30,000 Ontarians working.
I recognize the member for Don Valley West.
Thank you, Speaker. The FAO's report yesterday highlights yet again that this government's rosy picture of the Ontario economy is just plain wrong. These are the facts. Ontario's unemployment rate was 5.9% when this government took office. Now it's 7.8%. And Ontario's cities hold the indistinct honour of taking the top 4 spots in Canada's list of cities with the highest unemployment rates. Speaker, what do they do in response to this jobs crisis? They brag about their Skills Development Fund, which got a failing grade from the Auditor General because it was not fair, transparent, nor accountable. Because the Labour Minister gave money to his friends instead of high-scoring applicants. Speaker, my question to the Finance Minister, will he stand up today and admit that that was wrong?
Finance Minister.
Madam Speaker, what was wrong was the failed policies of the previous Liberal government. I know it hurts. I know it's painful. Madam Speaker, often the truth hurts. I know it's painful. I know it's painful to hear that our economy grew under our administration from $850 billion to $1.2 trillion.
The third party will come to order.
It really hurts to hear that under their government, manufacturing got as low as 750,000 jobs in this province. 70,000 more manufacturing jobs today under our government at 830,000. I know that hurts a lot to hear that.
That must have hurt.
And our Minister of Energy, I know it really hurts when we give you the opportunity to support 30,000 new construction jobs for Pickering, another 18,000 jobs in Durham. That's almost 50,000 new construction jobs. You have a chance to vote for the people of Ontario.
The third party will come to order.
Step up and vote for Ontario.
Back to the member for Don Valley West.
It's clear the Finance Minister does not want to speak about the Skills Development Fund because he knows he cannot defend the indefensible. He won't stand up and defend it. He knows that Ontario's unemployment is not being addressed by the Skills Development Fund. It was really a way to make the government's friends and insiders just make them richer. And in the process, Speaker, they secured money for the PCs through donations. Speaker, this program has been in place since 2021. Unemployment started rising in 2023, and Ontario has more unemployed people than we ever have before. The Skills Development Fund is a fiasco. Through you to the Finance Minister, when will he step in and stop the flow of taxpayer money to the Skills Development Fund?
Minister of Finance.
It's tough to be on the other side of the aisle. I understand that. Very painful, because under their government, we saw credit rating downgrades. I know it hurts when you see credit rating upgrades.
The leader
lowering
of the
borrowing
third party
costs for
will
Ontario,
come to
putting
order.
more money back in the people of Ontario, businesses, workers, and families. In fact,
Don Valley North will come to order.
the fall economic statement, which they did not support, they did not vote for, highlighted almost $12 billion in cuts in taxes and fees for consumers in Ontario, money back in their pockets. But wait, there's more. $11.5 billion back in the pockets of businesses around this province, including $5.6 billion back in the pockets of small and medium-sized businesses, Madam Speaker.
Response.
But the members opposite have the option to vote for Ontario, vote for our energy plan, refurbishing Pickering, building the SMRs. Come join us.
Final supplementary.
Speaker, you know what's tough? It's tough for this Finance Minister to stand up and even utter the words Skills Development Fund. Yes! You know why? Because he knows that giving money to it until it's cleaned up is an irresponsible use of taxpayer money. He won't admit that that program has not boosted the jobs, and talking about job creation is not the same as creating jobs. Youth unemployment is near an all-time high under this government. We know that gangs are recruiting those youth to violent crime. And, Speaker, they're vulnerable in part because they can't find a job. In my riding of Don Valley West, parents of these youth are worried that their kids will be the next ones recruited to gangs and violent crime. Our Youth Career Fund that this government voted down would have provided work for up to 75,000 young people. My question to the Finance Minister, when will he start focusing on helping young people find a job instead of helping PC friends and insiders through the Skills Development Fund?
Bravo.
Finance Minister.
Let's be clear, Madam Speaker, what the member opposite and the Liberals are saying. They're saying no to the men and women who are building this province. That's what they're saying. They're saying no to the great workers who are building Ontario.
Order.
Well, let's just take a look at the announcement yesterday that was made and some of the supportive quotes from the iron workers who helped build this province. They were at the announcement. They're supporting this government because they know this is good-paying jobs, and they will continue to do that. Carpenters
Leader of the
were
third
there.
party
The Canadian
will come to
Union of
order.
Skilled Workers, LIUNA, the Boilermakers were there. The
Valley North
Construction
will come to
Workers,
order.
Teamsters Canada were there. The Society of Union Professionals, the engineers. You know, I think it's time that the members opposite wake up, that something's happening here. We're building Ontario. We're creating the conditions for great jobs, the energy future for this province, supporting the men and women who are building this province. I say it again.
I recognize the member from Mushkegowuk, James Bay.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Speaker.
More closures on Highway 11 and 17 yesterday and more today. Now, for more than 24 hours. The emergency room in Kapuskasing is closed because the on-call doctor is stuck on the road.
Whoa. Oh, no.
Yet this government refused to act. And we are still seeing accidents and closures all the time. And the winter is not even started. Can the Premier explain what their plan is to ensure these highways are safe to remain open for families, for hospitals, workers, goods, and economic activities? Because what your plan you're doing is not working.
It's not working. Minister of Transportation.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. We have deployed over 1,400 pieces of equipment across our highways with a specific focus on the north and making sure that we clear those highways. We have the best standard of highway clearance in all of Canada, Madam Speaker, and we continue to beat that standard 97% of the time. Over $100 million were invested last year in improving winter maintenance on northern roads. And guess what? Every time we have invested or made investments within budgets, the fall economic statement that is here today, that member has voted against every single one of those investments into highway maintenance and improvements into highway maintenance, Madam Speaker. We're going to continue to ensure that we have those highways clear. We're going to continue to ensure that our winter maintenance program is enhanced like we have every single year, year over year, and ensure that we continue to have the safest roads in North America.
I recognize the member for Timiskaming Cochrane.
Speaker, I listened intently to the minister, and your investments don't seem to be working. Highway 11, the Trans-Canada Highway, the one that actually gets to the edge of Northern Ontario between North Bay and Cochrane, from January to September, was closed for a total of 32 days. Wow. 32 days. We got that from the Ministry of Transportation. So whatever you're doing isn't working. This is the highway that actually gets to Crawford Minerals of national significance, that gets to Agnico Eagle, that gets to Detour Lake, that actually drives this province. And it's two-lane. You promise things, but you don't deliver. When are you going to take Northerners and the Trans-Canada Highway seriously?
Minister of Transportation.
Mr. Speaker, there is no government that has invested more in northern highways and northern winter maintenance than this government. Let the record show for itself, Madam Speaker. Just last year, over $500 million of investments into the north, which the members opposite have voted against. In fact, they fundamentally disagree with building roads, Madam Speaker, whether it's the Highway 413 Bradford bypass or our investments in Highway 11-17. The Premier announced, Madam Speaker, his intent and in our plan to build in that member's own riding, the expansion of the 2+1 pilot program that the member has consistently voted against every single time, Madam Speaker. We have a $30 billion plan over the next 10 years to invest in our highways and in infrastructure and building those northern highways. And we will do that, and we'll get shovels in the ground, despite the opposition of the NDP and Liberals of not investing in those areas, Madam Speaker. Over 1,400 pieces of equipment deployed across our highways to ensure we keep people safe, Madam Speaker, and we're going to continue to do whatever we can to do that.
I recognize the member for Kingston and the Islands.
Merci. Le site web.
The personal web page of the Treasury Board staff here in Ontario says in English,
value to taxpayers. Son ministère a sûrement dû avoir.
The ministry certainly warned the Minister of Labour because he had personally chosen to fund the Skills Development Fund, and it placed in peril value to taxpayers. The money was going to go toward projects that had less chance of helping people find a job. Indeed, it's exactly what the Auditor General concluded. To the Speaker, to the President of the Treasury Board, does the Minister of Labour meet the standard?
Merci, Madame la Présidente, pour cette.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this crucial question. Listen.
And what I'm not hearing from the member opposite is supporting the training of the great men and women of this province who are building this province, Madam Speaker. What the minister is doing is helping to retrain and reskill and bring into the workforce all the workers that we need, whether it's science, technology, engineering and math, from the Minister of Colleges and Universities to the Minister of Labour, focusing on skilled trades, making sure the ironworkers and the boilermakers and the carpenters and the men and women who are in those organizations not only build our nuclear capacity in this province, that support our manufacturing capacity in this province, but that we as a government are providing them the tools in partnership with those workers' unions and those workers' organizations to make sure that we can continue to build this great province.
Back to the member for Kingston and the Islands.
L'année dernière, après que la.
Last year, says the MPP of Kingston and the Islands, when there were some midtown in Kingston for family doctors. They could not sign a lease nor hire because they were waiting for the approval of the Treasury Board. This is frustrating because people are waiting for a long time to have a family doctor. But the Treasury Board did not do their work. They had to. The president of the board, did she validate the funding of the Skills Development Fund for works that are not well estimated, or was she tricked by the Ministry of Labour? Mrs. Speaker, thank you again for this important question.
To represent our constituents there. We put a shovel in the ground. The Minister of Education supported a building of a new Catholic school in Pickering for 622 students, 88 childcare spaces. Haven't been built in over a decade for the Catholic system. You know what the workers there said? We need more machinists. We need more HVAC specialists. We need more skilled workers in this province to help build this province. $200 billion of infrastructure to build this province. So the retraining, the reskilling, the support for these workers is what this province needs more than ever right now, Madam Speaker. And let me tell you this, be it an apprenticeship program or a better jobs program or a FAIRS program or a dual credit system in grade 11 or 12, this minister, this government won't relent supporting the workers of Ontario.
Recognize the member for York South Weston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, my question is for the Honourable Minister of Transportation. Speaker, every Ontarian deserves to feel safe on our roads, but dangerous and careless driving continues to put lives at risk and it devastates families. We have heard heartbreaking stories like that of Andrew Castrillo, a father of 3, tragically killed by a driver charged with dangerous driving and stunt driving. Speaker, our communities deserve real protection. Earlier this week, our government introduced legislation that would crack down on dangerous driving and keep our communities safe. Speaker, can the minister explain how this new legislation will make our roads safer for everyone?
I recognize the member for Brampton East.
Thank you very much, Speaker, and thank you to the member from York South Weston for your commitment on raising this important issue on road safety. Speaker, no family should ever face the heartbreak of losing a loved one because of a reckless driver. That's why our government will introduce new law, a tough new law, and measures to crack down on dangerous driving inspired by the Andrews Law petition. Speaker, these changes include a lifetime license suspension for anyone convicted of dangerous driving causing death, immediate roadside license suspensions and vehicle impoundments for dangerous driving behavior, and Speaker, increased fines and penalties for driving with a suspended license and distracted driving. Under this Premier's leadership, Speaker, we're taking decisive action to deter reckless behavior, hold offenders accountable, and make sure Ontario's roads are the safest roads in North America. Thank you, Speaker.
Back to the member for York South Weston.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the honourable member for the response. It's encouraging to hear that our government is continuing to prioritise public safety and hold reckless drivers accountable. Speaker, the families in my riding of York South Weston want to know what these measures will make a difference. They also want to have the confidence that this bill will help prevent tragedies like Andrew Castillo's from ever happening again. Our government must continue to demonstrate leadership and take immediate action in our roads and highways. Speaker, can the minister share more details on how these changes will protect drivers and pedestrians and strengthen road safety across Ontario?
Recognize the member for Brampton East.
And thank you again to the member from York South Weston. Our government is committed to making roads safer than ever. In addition to lifetime license suspensions for dangerous driving causing death, we're introducing new roadside suspensions for careless driving, 7 days for careless driving and 30 days for careless driving causing bodily harm, Speaker. Increased fines for distracted driving and commercial vehicle offences, and enhancing driver education for young and novice drivers to prevent dangerous behaviour before it starts. Speaker, we're also consulting on new policies to support families impacted by impaired driving, including requiring offenders to provide financial support for victims' children, Speaker. And these measures send a clear message. Dangerous driving will not be tolerated in Ontario. We will continue to put road safety first and protect lives here on our roads. Thank you, Speaker.
recognize the member for Kiwetinoong.
Miigwech, Speaker, Minigajibaya. This fall, Anishinaabe Nation and the Snaabaski Nation declared states of emergency because of public safety crisis. In Nan Territory, the push for resource development has made communities more vulnerable to human trafficking, gang-related crime, and drug activity. To the Premier, what actions has this government taken to address the public safety crisis in First Nations across Ontario?
I recognize the Attorney General.
Speaker, and we have taken several actions and engaged in conversations that are still ongoing, Madam Speaker. We're very aware that we do have some challenges, and we're partnering with the First Nations to make sure that we are doing things properly, to make sure that we're doing things in concert. We do have a table that meets regularly to deal with First Nations bylaws and the enforcement of those bylaws, to try and find a way that we can work together to achieve a common goal of having everyone feel safe in their communities and make sure that the resources are there to follow through and make sure that that happens, Madam Speaker.
The member for Kiwetinoong.
Miigwech, Speaker. Conversations and tables are not good enough right now. First Nations have declared states of emergency, and this government has not responded. Speaker, I know that the Premier talks big about extracting from the north, but ignores the crisis, the crises actually, in mental health and addictions, public safety, and health care. When will the Premier start to value the lives of First Nations people, children, over the dollar signs he sees on our lands?
The Attorney General.
Madam Speaker, our government does understand the unique social challenges facing First Nations communities, and we understand the need for tailored, community-based responses. Almost $4 million through the Roadmap to Wellness to continue supporting emergency prevention, and recovery efforts, and through the Regional Social Emergency Managers Program. We're aware of the recent states of emergency declared by NAN and other First Nations following incidents of violence, and we're working closely with our federal partners as well, Madam Speaker. $94 million over 3 years to improve the health and well-being of Indigenous and Northern communities, including $60 million for mental health, addictions, and opioid services. Our government has allocated $110 million to improve emergency preparedness for funding, supporting community organizations, expanded emergency programs, and others. Madam Speaker, we are not just meeting at tables and having discussions. We are acting and we are putting resources in place. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
I recognize the member for Ottawa, Vanier.
Thank you, Speaker. It's truly unfortunate that this government's mishandling of public funds has forced us to spend so much time, discussing their skills development fiasco instead of the real issues affecting Ontarians, like access to health care. And, Speaker, the situation is even more troubling for the Francophone community. It has now been a full year since the government received a major provincial plan developed by L'Hôpital Montfort, a plan the government itself commissioned to improve health services in French. So it's been a whole year. Yet, despite all this work, despite the urgency, the government has still not responded. So I'll offer an occasion to the minister to offer a response as to when is the government going to finally respond to the Montfort-led provincial plan and invest in Francophone healthcare so that our communities can receive the service that they have been waiting for.
I recognize the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you for the member opposite for raising a very important issue. As she knows very well, we have embarked on the largest primary care expansion in decades, really, in the province of Ontario, multidisciplinary teams with an investment of over $2 billion. In February of 2024, you will remember that we announced our first round of 78 new and expanded multidisciplinary teams across Ontario. Of course, all of those teams are now up and running, taking
taking on new patients. Our most recent expansion was in June of this year, again, where we intend to expand access to primary care. There's no doubt that Ontario leads Canada, but we can do more, and we are doing more with these investments. We are currently assessing the applications that came in September, and I look forward to good news shortly. Thank you.
Back to the member for Ottawa-Vanier.
Speaker, obviously this government continues to ignore the very real challenges Franco-Ontarians face when trying to access health care in their own language. I didn't hear the minister mention the word francophone in her answer. Did I miss it? Did somebody hear francophone? So there's definitely some misunderstanding. And the urgency could not be clearer in Vanier, where we have a large francophone population and 10,000 residents remain unattached to a primary care provider. Many are newcomers who rely on French navigator systems, and many are seniors, like my mother, who simply cannot contemplate having to explain complex medical issues in English. Access to francophone primary care is profoundly inadequate. So I will ask the minister, what is your actual plan to increase the number of seats for French-speaking doctors, nurses, and other health professionals in Ontario's university and colleges?
Back to the Minister of Health.
It would probably be helpful for the member opposite to actually pull out the applications and what we're looking for across Ontario. So as we embark on these expansions, we have very much focused on, first, of course, communities that have the highest unattachment rates. And I say that knowing that Ontario leads Canada in attachment rates of 90%. She might also be interested in knowing that in the application process, applications that have a focus on areas of high need, areas of communities that have a higher population of First Nations and Francophone populations have actually been prioritized. And to suggest that we are not actively working with Montfort in particular, they have been a leader in ensuring that we are encouraging individuals who want to come to Ontario and practice their healthcare profession in Ontario. We are doing that. We have done that with Practice Ready Ontario. We have done that with the CPSO, and will continue to do.
Question. I recognize the member from Markham-Unionville.
Thank you, Speaker. My question is for Minister of Citizenship and Multiculturalism. Speaker, Ontario is one of the most diverse provinces in Canada, and that diversity is one of our greatest strengths. However, we have seen a rise in hate-motivated incidents that have targeted places of worship, cultural centers, and community organizations. These acts of hate not only threaten the safety and well-being of community in our province, but they go against everything we stand for as Ontarians. People in my riding of Markham-Unionville and across the province wants to know that our government is taking action to protect our communities and prevent these acts from happening. Speaker, can the minister please tell this House what our government is doing to combat hate and ensure that Ontarians feel safe in their communities?
I recognize the member for Scarborough-Agincourt.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And thank you to the member from Markham-Unionville for that question. Racism, hate, and discrimination have no place in Ontario and will never be tolerated. That's why our government continues to work with the community partners and organizations from faith-based and cultural communities to create community-centered solutions that combat hate and build safer communities right here at home. Earlier this month, our government launched another round of anti-hate security and prevention grant. Since May 2023, we have invested $58 million to help faith-based and cultural organizations strengthen safety and security at places of worship and other cultural significant spaces. Speaker, hate has no place in Ontario, and we are taking decisive action to ensure that every person in Ontario can practice their faith, earn living, and raise family.
Back to the member for Markham Unionville.
Thank you, Speaker. And thank you to the parliamentary assistants that response. Security upgrades are critical to addressing hate incidents in our province. That's why the Anti-Hate Security and Prevention Grant Program is so important in establishing safe and inclusive environment for all Ontarians. But we know that these investments alone are only part of the solution. Education and prevention are equally important to address the root causes of hate and build understanding among communities. Our government is working beyond physical security measures to promote inclusion and prevent hate from taking form in our communities. Speaker, can the parliamentary assistant please explain what additional steps we are taking to foster education and awareness so that Ontario remains a province where everyone feels safe and respected?
Back to the member for Scarborough Agincourt.
Thank you again, Speaker, and thank you to the member for highlighting this important point. The member is absolutely right. Combating hate requires more than security upgrades. That's why, in addition to the Anti-Hate Security and Prevention Grant, our government is investing in education and outreach initiatives that promote acceptance, unity, and inclusion. Between 2021 and 2025, the Ministry of Citizenship and Multiculturalism has supported 82 community-led public education and awareness projects to combat racism and hate, while fostering safer, more united communities. And that's why we released Building a Stronger and More Inclusive Ontario, Ontario's Anti-Racism Strategy Plan, which outlines 49 initiatives from 14 ministries and hundreds of millions in investment from across the government to dismantle barriers and empower communities. Speaker, our message is...
La députée de Nickel Belt.
Merci, Madame la
MPP Nickel Belt, thank you very much. My question goes to the Ministry of Health.
Northern Ontario Hospital are facing a deficit. They tried every efficiencies possible, but they are left with no choice to cut programs and lay off staff. 2 weeks ago, the MPP from Sudbury and I went to the hospital in North Bay. They have issued layoff notices to 40 frontline healthcare workers, 13 RNs, 3 RPNs, 1 occupational therapist, the list goes on. Those people work in important hospital services like the emergency department that has a 12-hour wait time right now. What is the minister doing to protect access to hospital services for the good people of North Bay?
I recognize the Minister of Health.
Speaker, not only is it appropriate, but it is necessary for us to work with our hospital partners to make sure that they have a path to balance, which is why earlier this year we asked them for their 3-year plan on how they intended to do that. We are now seeing hospitals submitting plans that show they can make improvements in access to care. There is no, and I repeat, no change in the actual services provided. What our hospital partners are doing is completely appropriate and something they do on a regular basis, and that is to assess, review their operations to make sure that they are providing the appropriate care in their communities and making sure that those frontline providers are there when the communities need it. Thank you, Speaker.
Thank you very much, Speaker. I'll be sure to let the minister carry on to the minister, the 3 women with babies, that the work they do has no effect on health care. Speaker, the member from Nickel Belt and I went to North Bay because the Premier is a jobs disaster. Under his watch, in his minister's riding, 40 healthcare workers are going to lose their jobs, and nobody from the Conservative bench will even speak with them. New Democrats care about workers. New Democrats care about health care. If 40 healthcare workers from Sudbury were losing their jobs, I'd fight for them every single day. When will the Premier finally start fighting for the 40 healthcare workers in North Bay?
of Health.
I hope when the members opposite visited the North Bay Regional Healthcare Centre, they also highlighted the fact for the last 3 years we have increased hospital-based budgets by an average of 4%. I'm guessing the answer is you forgot that very salient point. When we invest in our healthcare workers, when we license over 100,000 nurses since 2018, when we offer more opportunities for training in our communities, that's when we start to see impacts that positively ensure that our hospital partners are there and able to provide the necessary services. We'll continue to do that. As I said, 4% on their base budgets in the last 4 years. We've been there for hospitals, and we will continue to be there for hospitals.
Question. I recognize the member for Beaches East York.
Speaker, Ontario's craft brewing industry is an incredible economic driver, creating great local jobs, generating local investment, and driving local tourism, especially in rural and northern communities. 11,500 full-time jobs, $685 million annually to our GDP, often the largest employers in the regions. But the current beer tax system is outdated and unfair. 90% of craft brewers in Ontario pay the same tax as microbrewers that are bigger and more established. They pay $78 tax on the first hectoliter of beer they produce versus $10 in Alberta. My question to the Premier, will he adopt Alberta's progressive tax structure so that craft breweries can not only survive but thrive in Ontario?
Minister of Finance.
Wow, that was a great endorsement of our plan for Ontario and the alcohol system. Wow. I couldn't have written it any better. The craft beer, no government in history has supported the craft beer industry more than this government. In fact, the volumes are up 33% for all the local producers since we modernized. And in fact, we've cut craft beer taxes. In fact, when we did that by 50% in the last budget, they lauded the move to cut taxes and fees, putting more money back into the craft brewers' pockets so they could employ more people, they could sell more product. And it goes beyond that. Do you know the VQA, the wine producers in Ontario, as well, the craft producers, their volumes are up 79%.
Response?
So, Madam Speaker, we've seen a renaissance for producers in this province. We've never seen more support and action from this government to support our great Ontario-made products.
The member for Beaches East York.
Speaker, we know how obsessed this Premier is with alcohol. Buck a beer, Crown Royal, booze in corner stores, a complete love affair. And yet, his Minister of Finance instructed the LCBO to jack up prices as part of a new wholesale program. Whoa. When the restaurant, bar, and retail sector blew their stacks, this government tried to blame the LCBO. And the usual backtracking began with the price gouging delayed until April 2026. But it needs to be cancelled outright because a 40 to 70% markup for beer will not fly with Ontarians, and it undermines our competitiveness. My question to the Minister of Finance, why would he order the LCBO to increase the price of alcohol so drastically when Ontarians need it to cope with this government?
Minister of Finance.
Madam Speaker, I would advise the member opposite to check her source for that. This government has cut fees and taxes like no other government in the history of Ontario. Just ask the craft producers, just ask the wine producers, just ask the cider producers, just ask the spirits producers. We cut taxes by 50% for spirits and for craft producers.
You know, the third party will come to order.
So, Madam Speaker, 9,000 points of sale now, way up. By the way, they increased the wine tax, they increased the beer tax, they increased more taxes while they were in government than we've seen in a long time. We're cutting taxes, we're putting more money back in the pockets of consumers and for alcohol producers. And by the way, small businesses, convenience stores says their revenues are up 30% on weekends. So we're helping small businesses at the same time. This is a great win for the people and the businesses of Ontario.
member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Thank you, Speaker. And my question is to the Associate Solicitor General for Auto Theft and Bail Reform.
Speaker Beaches East York will come to order.
Families in Ontario deserve to feel safe in their homes and in their communities. But for far too long, we've heard case after case of career criminals and repeat violent offenders being released on bail, only to reoffend the same date or the same hour. The consequences are serious. Families are concerned for their well-being and are looking to their governments for support. Speaker, our government will always stand up for the safety of our residents. That's why, under this Premier's leadership, we've been calling for a tougher bail and a stronger criminal code. Speaker, can the Associate Minister share some details with the House on what he's doing to push the federal government for stronger bail reform in Canada?
Excellent question.
I recognize the Associate Minister.
Thank you, Speaker, and I thank my colleague from Windsor-Tecumseh for the question. Speaker, since day one, our government has been unequivocal on the need for meaningful bail reform in Ontario. Too often, dangerous criminals are released immediately on the street, with little thought given to the impact it has on communities. Under the leadership of Premier Ford, we have pushed the federal government to prioritize bail and sentencing reform, resulting in positive changes to the Canadian Criminal Code. While not as fulsome as we would like, these changes are a first good step in restoring safety in our communities and confidence in our justice system. Of course, there remains a lot to do, and our government will not waver in our commitment to ensure that everybody in Ontario feels safe, and that criminals, particularly repeat violent offenders, are kept where they belong, behind bars.
Back to the member for Windsor-Tecumseh.
Thank you, Speaker. I want to thank the Associate Solicitor General for that response. The federal government's recently introduced Bill C-14 appears to be a step in the right direction. We thank them for that when it comes to bail reform. But there's more that needs to be done. Too many violent repeat offenders continue to walk free and put our communities at risk. This cannot continue, Speaker. Under the leadership of this Premier, our government is making victims' voices heard and standing behind our brave men and women in uniform to help put these criminals behind bars. Speaker, can the Associate Solicitor General share some more details with the House on what steps our government is taking to keep our streets and communities safe?
Back to the Associate Minister.
Thank you, Speaker. This week, our government introduced the Keeping Criminals Behind Bars Act. This bill contains provisions that, if passed, will prove transformative for justice in our province. These proposed changes include requiring that an accused person or the surety provide a cash deposit in the full amount ordered by court upon release. Enhanced collection tools for garnishing wages, seizure and sale of property and property liens for bail debt. The creation of a surety database to help streamline and enhance surety checks and provides a centralized repository of information supplied to police. And enhanced enforcement and monitoring tools, including expansion of the provincial bail prosecution teams. While these changes mark yet another step towards restoring confidence in our justice system, our government will not stop pushing for more changes, including at the federal level, to ensure fairness, justice, and security for all who call Ontario home. Thank you.
Question. I recognize the member for Toronto-Danforth.
Thank you, Speaker. My question to the Premier. Tenants at a high-rise in my riding are facing a third above-guideline rent increase. They've just gone through 2 years of increases that have raised their rents about 10%. They fear another 5% increase. Quite a few tell me that with their wages stagnant, they don't know if they can afford to stay in their homes. When will the Premier act to protect tenants like this who are pushed to the brink?
I recognize the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Well, thank you, Speaker. And I think, as I've said in the House several times this week, rent is at a 40-month low in the City of Toronto. We continue to see more supply. With more supply is coming better competition, and rents are actually falling. We're seeing increased investment in this sector. We're up 17,000 new starts year over year, 51,000 new starts over 3 years. We lowered the HST on purpose-built rentals. The program is working, Speaker. Rental starts in this province are a bright light in our housing continuum, and they will continue to be as we continue to grow, we will prevail in the housing market, Speaker.
Back to the member for Toronto, Danforth.
Speaker, thank you. I have to say, my constituents who are worried about losing their homes will get no comfort from that response. None. Yeah. The recent changes to landlord-tenant law in Bill 60 will make it easier for corporate landlords to squeeze tenants who are already finding it difficult to cover rent and food at the same time. Tenants need protection from predatory corporate landlords. Will this government give them that protection?
Back to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing.
Speaker, spreading fear is not going to work. Not one protection has been altered in Bill 60. In fact, we increased the time it's going to take to get to landlord-tenant hearings, adjudications. We've doubled the adjudicators in the province. That's a fact. We've invested $26 million into the system to speed up adjudication. That is a fact. We've seen an 80% decrease in hearings. We've sped up the backlog. It's continuing to work. We're tightening the system. We're creating the conditions to get more hearings heard, more faster, better conditions for more renters, better conditions for landlords. And let's talk about protecting all Ontarians when it comes to our rental market. Why? Because we're creating supply, Speaker. The program's working. We will continue on this path.
Recognize the Government House Leader on a point of order.
So, thanks, Speaker. Under Standing Order 59, just want to give some clarity on next week's schedule. As is in the orders of the day, this afternoon we'll have second reading debate on Bill 72, followed by second reading debate on Bill 76. On Monday, December 1st in the afternoon, we'll have two third reading debates, third reading debate on Bill 27, followed by third reading debate on Bill 25. On Tuesday, December the 2nd, both in the morning and in the afternoon, we'll have second reading debate on Bill 45. On Wednesday, December the 3rd in the morning, we'll have second reading debate on Bill 45. The House will come back at 1 o'clock, and in the afternoon, just prior to the Speaker's party, we'll have tributes to deceased members with 5 minutes for the government, 5 minutes for the official opposition, 5 minutes for the third party, and 2 minutes each for the independent members as a group. Thursday at this time will be to be determined.
Pursuant to Standing Order 36A, the member for Ottawa South has given a notice of dissatisfaction with the answer to the question given by the Minister of Finance regarding manufacturing jobs. This matter will be debated on Tuesday, following December 2nd, following private members' public business.